to welcome all of you to January 1984. Some crazy guy in the Silicon Valley determined that every man and woman was going to have an Apple computer in home. They launched their first home computer that very month. Steve Jobs was determined to make a difference in technology. And in 1984, I was graduating hygiene school, determined to make an impact in the dental world. Yes, that's me in a little dress. I clean teeth in a dress and a little white cap. Every day I walked into my practice, very much like Mr. Rogers in the proverbial sweater. I would go over to my cupboard, open it up, and bobby pin that little cap on my head. I was ready to take on any hygiene patient that came my way, or so I thought. What I didn't do was turn on a computer. What I didn't wear were masks and gloves. And in 1984, the word dental implant wasn't even in my vocabulary. Well, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2020. Today, implants are the standard of care in every practice. All of the meeting exhibitors here, meeting planners here, can walk through the exhibit halls today and see how rapidly the implant industry has grown. Back in the 80s, we had approximately 8 companies. Today, there are close to 400. We now know that implants impact the dental practice very much like a computer impacts business. They're here to stay. Our patients can get implant information anywhere. Everybody knows now the Google. Steve was right. Everybody has a home computer. In fact, you have little phones now where you can almost YouTube the entire implant procedure from start to finish. Actually, you can from start to finish. Are your practices staying on top of their game? We all know in today's dental industry, people have a choice. The first phone call that comes in can make the decision on that patient coming to your practice. Are we empowering the teams the way we need to so that they could give the right information to the patients that are calling, asking about those procedures? Dentistry is a team sport. Without everybody understanding what's going on in the practice, there can be no success. Think about when you bring in a brand new computer, a new software program, you get trained, there's support that follows up with this. Are we doing the same thing in our clinical procedures? For me, I realized early on as a member of the team that wasn't so. I'm lucky enough, for those in the audience, I live in Cleveland, Ohio, home of the Cleveland Clinic, and back in the 80s, perio disease and heart disease was a huge trend. I was fortunate enough that there was tons of information and education. I soaked up as much. I was determined in my career, I vowed that I would stay current and impact every patient that I touched. It was just who I was. I kind of became a knowledge geek. So much so that I wound up getting a job for the largest perio practice in the city of Cleveland. We were partnered with the clinic, clearing patients for bypass surgery. And what we would do is we would go, the clinical team would march down there, we would get educated, we would get trained, and we were prepared. We would go back to the office, and the administrative team was told, get these patients in, they have priority. Nobody said anything more. Back in the lunchroom, in some serendipitous moment, I can't help it. As you can see, I like to talk. I'm sharing the information I have with one of the front desk staff who looked at me and said, there's a link between periodontal disease and heart disease. We really do have to get these patients in. That prompted her to take that information back to the rest of the business team, and lo and behold, we found ourselves having conversations in the lunchroom over procedures and things that were being done in the practice, including our newest dental implants. It was very empowering for the team. Their phone conversations changed, conversations with patients changed. We overall had a great positive vibe, and that front versus the back attitude was diminishing. So much so that this put a quest for us to go out and reach all of our referring practices. Knowledge is powerful. I knew what I knew, and I was willing to share it. We would go out and educate them on periodontal disease. And as the implants were starting to pick up in the practice, people were asking me questions about implants. I knew enough to know that I didn't know. So I started getting curious. I started asking questions. I started making phone calls. And lo and behold, the 5 or 6 companies that were out there thought I was crazy. What do you mean the restorative offices need to know this? So much so that I landed myself a job working with all of these different implant companies, speaking on behalf of the team in the GP practice. How is the staff going to get inspired to do this? In my crazy schedule, I also did a lot of fill-in hygiene, and one of our top hygiene practices asked me to do fill-in for them. And I'm thinking everybody's on the same page as me. I don't know, I was in this little perio world, protected and safe, that everybody was doing hygiene the same way. Well, my first patient was edentulous. She was complaining about the fit of her lower denture. I started going on about implants. The office manager heard me and walked over and said, "We don't do implants here. They're experimental. They cost a lot of money. Mrs. Jones, your insurance isn't going to pay for it." Lo and behold, I knew that something magical was happening. I looked at that office manager and I said, "How would you feel if you knew you could impact Mrs. Jones's life? I'm going to teach you a little bit of facts about dental implants. Are you willing to learn? Are you open to take in knowledge?" And there it went. Mrs. Jones wound up coming to our practice and having implants done, and it changed her life. That office manager made it really easy for me to see, with a simple few demonstrations, trainings, educational moments, they could change their practices. I ask you today, implants have changed dramatically and over the time. So when we look at what's going on in technology, are we treating today's implant patient with yesterday's technology? Every single practice is impacted by implants today. Whether you're placing, restoring, or you inherit a case, they're here to stay. So if every single team member is given the information from that first phone call to the assistant that's ordering parts and pieces, to the hygienist that's got to maintain them long term, it really makes a difference in the success of the procedure. We all know that if one person in the office doesn't understand what's going on, we have a problem. It's not going to work. So I encourage you to stay curious, to ask questions, explore new technologies and techniques, and really research the science behind the procedures that are going on in your practices. You can truly impact patients' lives with dental implants. I think we look back at 1984 and we look at what Steve Jobs set out to do. I'm sure all of you would say he was successful. Now every single operatory has computers, technology has changed, the implant industry has changed. We're doing guided surgery, we're doing CBTC scans, we could actually plan a case, and robots or computers can actually place the implant. Screw retain restorations. Do your practices understand why we want to avoid cement? Implants have changed as much as technology. Let me help you get your teams at the top of their game. Thank you.